So, what emotions come to mind when you think of death? Usually ones of sadness, grief, and maybe even fear. However, in Mexican cultures on November 2nd, this is not the case. On Mexican cultures, November 2nd is the day to celebrate Day of the Dead. And on this day, it's a vibrant and unique holiday in which the people celebrate the lives of their ancestors, relatives, and loved ones who have passed, rather than mourn their death and be sad about the fact that they're not here anymore. So, why am I telling you about a holiday of a whole other culture? I think that as we get older, it's important to learn how to cope with death, and it helps us celebrate the lives of those who we miss rather than be sad about the fact that they're gone. And growing up in the United States, I didn't really know much about this holiday, even though my family members in Mexico celebrated it. Usually I was here, it was usually around Thanksgiving, and I just had school, so I never got to really be a part of it. But one year after my grandma had passed, my mom took my siblings and I, and she told us all about this holiday, and we spent the day celebrating it kind of in a small group ourselves. And we made dead bread, and we spent the day making these sugar candy schools, and it really made me see why this holiday is so important in Mexico, and why my relatives celebrated it every year. And it really helped me get closer with my family as well. So today I'm going to tell you about the history of the holiday, how it is celebrated in its components, and how it has become a part of Mexican American culture. So it's important to understand where this holiday comes from in order to understand its significance to both people in Mexico now and how it has shaped the culture. This history connects it to its indigenous Mexican ancestors, and actually Claudio Lomitz even argues in his 2005 book, Death and the Idea of Mexico, that death was a central force in the creation of Mexican states. So this explains the importance and how many cultures have death in their past, but Mexican culture has found a way to incorporate it in such a way that has developed the culture and it has become a part of it. And Day of the Dead originated several thousand years ago with Aztec, Toltec, Nahua people who considered mourning the dead something that was disrespectful, and the dead were kept alive in memory and in spirit, as stated by Gary and Soriano in their 2013 article published in National Geographic. So in Mexican cultures, death is seen as a part of life, and it's seen as something that should be accepted and embraced rather than feared and try to be pushed off. And this holiday obviously is very old, and it dates back to a long time ago. But now it has survived and has become a mix of modern and old customs and traditions. And this has transformed to something that is still relevant today, and it retains the essence, yet is something that is more modern today. And you can really see this through the art of the Day of the Dead. So as you can see, this is from a long time ago, and as Brandy's 1998 article, Iconography in Mexico's Day of the Dead, it explains how the art tells the story, and it creates an aesthetic that is uniquely Mexican and is not found in any other cultures. And it's usually characterized by depictions of the celebration and skulls. And in this way, you can see that the old art lives in through the new art, but the new art is something that is more relevant to people today. So people see this art and they can appreciate it, yet it still retains a lot of the characteristics of past depictions from before. So they mix the history with the present, and in order to make it something that is still practiced today, and people still create this art today that represents the history and that people are able to really connect with it as well. So now you know the history and how it connects Mexican people with their ancestors and how it was practiced before. And now I want to share how it is celebrated and its key components. So the complex ornaments and the vibrant colors make Day of the Dead a unique holiday that accentuates the creativity of Mexican culture. And these are some of the components. The first one, over on the right, is an altar, and they're meant to welcome back the spirit of the deceased. And they usually contain skulls and pictures of loved ones, their favorite food, maybe artwork dedicated to them. And those flowers, those little orange flowers that you see all over the place, they're marigolds. And their petals are supposed to guide the spirit of the deceased back to their resting place at the end of the night. And an article called Mexican Society and Culture, the complete report published in 2010 by TV World, describes that at cemeteries on this day, tombstones and gravesites come alive with candles, marigolds, and skeletons. And I think this is very interesting because usually you think of cemeteries as places of fear and places of sadness, yet on this day, all the vibrant colors in the altars make it something that completely is against that whole idea, and that's something that's very unique about this holiday. And another aspect is the food that goes into this holiday. These are the sugar candied skulls, and it's a very vibrant change as opposed to the original image of the skull, which is usually eerie and dark. And for us here, we associate it with Halloween and something like of fear. But rather these skulls, it says in a 1997 article, Sugar, Colonialism, and Death, that the sculpted sugar candies in the form of skulls, skeletons, caskets suggest an almost irreverent, macabre confrontation with mortality. So it just shows the many meanings and the different take on death that is seen on this day. And finally, this is dead bread, and it takes a long time to make, and there's various explanations, like many say that this represents like the head and the whole thing is the skeleton, or it's like the circle of life, and it's just really depends on what your family yourself has passed on throughout generations, but all of these are key components on this day. And finally, as you understand the components and significance, you can understand its increasing popularity in the United States. The Mexican-American culture has incorporated this into celebrations in the United States. And Brandy's 1988 article, Day of the Dead, Halloween, and the Quest for Mexican National Identity, it says that this holiday in recent years has linked Mexico and Mexican identity. So you can see how Mexican Americans would want to celebrate this year in order to connect to their ancestors. And also in a 2010 article, Hybridity and Authenticity in U.S. Day of the Dead celebrations, they've noted how as the Latino population has increased in the U.S., non-Latinos have begun to embrace Day of the Dead as an alternative way to remember the departed. So it's not just for Mexican Americans, but it's for people who maybe have past loved ones that they love and they want to remember in a way that's more positive. And this goes back to the whole idea of how my family and I, even though we live here and I've lived here for my whole entire life, we are able to connect to our culture and to my family by spending the day and doing this together. So I've now explained the history, how it is celebrated, and how it's become integrated into American culture. And I hope that now when you think of death, you won't feel as much sadness, grief, or fear, but rather recognize it as a part of life and see its relationship to life, and take the time to celebrate those who have passed, and maybe not see it as something too sad, but something that you can spend the day with your family and just remember them in their lives. Thank you.
Okay. Tony.